MPW is a stock that I get asked about quite a bit. This is a stock that could be a multi-bagger, and I think it lures a lot of investors to take a look at this stock. What also lures investors is a very high dividend rate. This is a very troubled real estate investment trust. Their principal tenant, Stewart, ended up in bankruptcy, and that created a big strain on the MPW business to the point where MPWs had to sell properties to drive up their cash flow and really stay as a viable concern. Overall, I'm all for seeing a rebound story, yet this one has been going on for a while. I can understand a rebound and giving a company 2 quarters to really show promising results or maybe showing that they're back on track. This one here has kind of stayed in the same cycle for over a year now, which is really, really concerning. I decided to completely sell my shares. I just thought that it was too much of a distraction. And before this past stock pullback, I wanted to drive up my cash position. So MPW is one of those stocks that I sold to create more cash. I'm glad I did, but I kind of felt like I was admitting defeat on a stock that I hoped would go up. I still hope it goes up. I still hope that the investors that hold MPW are rewarded for taking the chance on this company. I wanted to update my analysis on MPW and share with you how I feel about this company now that we've had a little over a year of the company trying to get out of this trouble. So MPW is a small cap stock. They're about $2.95 billion as a revenue cap, which in this day and age, that's a tiny cap. The revenue has been going down. It's $320 million per year. And I'll show the income statement and show you how revenue has gone down because they've sold properties in order to create cash on their balance sheet. Their dividend is attractive. The concern there is the payout ratio. We got to look at funds from operations, and I'll do that in a few minutes. Analysts say it's a hold and that the stock is discounted by 10%. The stock over the last couple of years, it's not a very pretty picture. The stock used to trade around $20 a share, and this is a real estate investment trust that operates in healthcare. So leasing out hospitals, clinics, urgent cares, that type of thing, to me, is fairly steady. So having your primary tenant, the biggest one you have, go bankrupt just really, really put a strain on this business. They've gone from being a $20 share per share stock down to bumping around, $4 or $5 per share. Now, stocks like these, if you buy them at the right time, and other stocks that I've seen really rebound off these lows, a good example would be Zim. That's done really well because it's really risen above the low that they reached. This one, MPW, you could have made some really good returns if you really knew where the bottom was, but that's really tough. Even if you just dollar cost averaged this year, you'd probably be doing okay. I know I sold at a loss because I started investing well over a year ago and probably invested a little over $5 per share, and I sold probably around $4 per share. So the company has had enough volatility to offer up some really low prices, but is it going to pay off for investors? Well, I think it's all about if they can just get this Stewart tenant off their books and out of the business and just have a clean business, then I think the answer is that the stock should rise. The other thing I would point out is I think that you got to have a little bit a changing of the guard where management that got them into this mess with Stewart, I think there needs to be some accountability and get some new people, some new blood into the business in the management team. You see how a new CEO could really do a lot of good. If you saw Starbucks decided to switch the CEO and put in a different CEO, and the stock rallied over 20% in one day. I think it really just changed the whole theme of Starbucks. They really needed that. I think if you had a new management team, investors might think differently of MPW and feel like they really have turned the page. That would just be an idea that I would throw out there. So if they make it, I think investors are really going to be rewarded. If they stay in these cycles of just bad news after bad news and can't get this Stewart bankruptcy through their system and off their balance sheet, then I think it's going to just continue to just cycle and keep this stock down for another year or so. The revenue for the company has been going down. Understandably, that you've got your biggest tenant not paying you, and that can really lower your revenue. They've also sold properties to create cash on their balance sheet. So they've seen their revenue really go down in 2023. In the trailing 12 months, it's really gone down as well. That's really concerning. I use top line revenue to tell me the health of the business. And obviously, this business is not healthy when they're losing that type of revenue. The other item we have to look at is funds from operations. That's how, for a real estate investment trust, you got to make sure they can afford that dividend. It's very attractive, but in 2023, it was way over funds from operations. That's why they lowered that dividend. So is that just going to happen over and over again where they have to keep lowering the dividend rate because they just can't afford it? We'll see. A 12% dividend is very, very high. They could probably cut it to some extent, and it's just going to set a bad precedent again. But a 12% is very high. It's abnormal. And companies typically don't pay that high of a rate. It's principally because the stock price has gone down so much in value. We'll see if it gets cut again. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, because the company is in survival mode. They have to figure out how to survive, and it may be at the cost of reducing that dividend again. Most analysts think the stock is either priced fairly or priced at a 10% discount. And one analyst actually thinks the stock ought to be priced around $10 per share. So there's an optimist for you. Overall, there's 10 analysts covering the stock, which is pretty good coverage for a small cap of this type. I think it's gotten a lot of attention since it's gotten a lot of press around the Stewart bankruptcy. The earnings per share in 24 is expected to be a loss, but it's supposed to be positive in 25 and 26 as well. I would say that it's a tiny earnings per share. I don't know that it's going to drive much of a valuation at all. And that's just kind of another bad sign of the company. It might be that this company gets sold for its parts. Somebody buys it and kind of rebrands it, or a bigger real estate investment trust buys it and gets rid of the bad stuff and keeps all the good stuff and just operates those properties under their own brand. Who knows? But what I'm seeing is just fundamentals that are really bad for a business. And I hate saying that, but it's just reality. I'd prefer for the company to really show more promise in the immediate future. They've had a lot of time to kind of sort through these issues. The one item that I would say is the interest rates coming down are really helping MPW. If you have lower interest rates and these guys have to redo their debt, they could probably get lower rates as opposed to the higher rates that we were paying a year or 2 years ago on loans. So that's a bit of good news and a bit of good luck. Overall, I think MPW has a chance to make it. I certainly hope they do, but I think it's going to take a while. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's just another year or two of disappointing news. For me, I'm staying out of the stock. I think this type of stock just gets me in the wrong road. I'm looking for the next Meta. I'm looking for the next Uber. And I'd rather spend my time and take my chances and make my bets trying to find a company like that than waiting around for MPW to turn their business around. I hope they do, but I just don't want to be waiting around. I think it's more of a distraction than it is valuable to me. So I'm staying out of MPW. I hope all the investors make money on this stock because I think investors deserve a good return on this stock. So that's my review of MPW. Hope you found it interesting. Keep in mind, I'm just an individual investor, just sharing my analysis with you. And I'm not recommending you buy, hold, or sell MPW. Appreciate you watching. Good luck investing.